how many miles would you say you've tested Vibram soles in the real world? 16,554.61 miles.
Or thereabouts.
Yeah.
That's like when people
Just as a rough estimate. Welcome back to the Gear Lab. I'm Nick Kemp. I am the design director here at Huckberry, and today we have a very special episode of the Gear Lab, and we will be talking about Vibram today and why it is the gold standard of soles in footwear. First, I want to introduce Robyn Lesh. Welcome to the Gear Lab. Robyn is a ultra runner, a tester, and an integral part of the Vibram team. And we're gonna get your perspective on all things Vibram. First to start, as I just said it twice, two different ways, is it pronounced Vibram or Vibram?
That's an excellent question. The answer is both. The company is originally Italian, so Vibram is how it is pronounced in Italy. The founder, Vitaly Berani, which is combined to be Vibram. But if I say Vibram to anyone here, they're like, pardon, what? So Vibram is fine, Vibram is fine. They both work.
This is a really, unique position that you are in. Can you tell me a little bit more how you got here and involved with Vibram?
Yeah, my background is engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer and I went to MIT. I was in the sailing world designing for America's Cup, which is these crazy flying boats. And that took me to New Zealand. I was running big distances, adventuring in the mountains, and I subsequently joined the Vibram team and have been working on various projects and running as a professional athlete since.
Engineer, ultra runner.
Yeah.
What a cool job.
Thanks. I call my method excitement theory. It means do what you're excited about.
Yeah, I love it. For those who might not be super familiar with Vibram, looking at the bottom of your soles, you ever see this great yellow logo on the bottom? That is a Vibram sole. I know I've been working in footwear for about 10 years now, and Vibram has always been my go-to sole when designing footwear. And for those who don't really know, can you give us a little bit more of a picture of what Vibram actually does?
Yep. We primarily make outsoles. So that's this part of the sole, the part that's on the bottom. We also make midsoles, the part in between the upper and the bottom of the shoe. And the reason why Vibram is so incredible at this is we've been doing it for a really long time. In 1936, Vitaly, an Italian mountaineer, unfortunately experienced a mountaineering accident where a bunch of his friends died on the mountain. And one of the reasons that happened is that they did not have adequate footwear. He came home and said, "This is silly. We have the technology to keep people alive on the mountain and it's not put into a shoe." And so he went home and partnered with some rubber manufacturers to create a Vibram sole. It's looked something like this. So for the last almost 90 years, Vibram has been innovating on rubber designs, rubber soles, rubber compounds to make really, really effective grip on the mountains to keep people safe, to keep them moving quickly, to keep them having a good time out there.
So let's talk a little bit more about the testing that goes into each Vibram product. How does that process kind of look like today?
So there are three steps, or three sort of main areas that we do testing. The first is we create these compounds. To make these different compounds is pretty much a recipe. When we get that rubber out, we need to do a bunch of testing on it. There's cyclic testing, there's abrasion testing, there's these test jigs that test the compound themselves. And then it goes to in vivo testing, which is if you took the real world and put it into a lab. So added all the sensors, added a relatively controlled environment with all the dynamics of the outdoors. If you can measure all those factors in a relatively controlled environment, then you can design something that will perform maximally in the real world. So isolating those specific measurements is what the in vivo lab tries to do. And then the last part is we've gone from testing the compounds specifically just sort of isolated in the lab, then we have real world-esque lab, and then we have real world testing.
So after a compound clears the in vivo testing, it goes into its next phase, the third phase of testing, which is the actual field testing of the compound and the product, which is really where you are most involved in. Can you give us a little bit more insight on what that process looks like?
Yeah, for sure. Field testing is where we start to work with the brands. So these are complete shoes that have the compound on the outsole and sometimes the midsole. So because I run for Vibram, I can run in any shoe that has a Vibram sole, which turns out to be almost all performance mountain shoes and trail running shoes. So there'll be a huge range of stuff and we just run and run and run. Wear them into the ground is what I do. I've learned there's trail running isn't as simple as trail running. And so in that wide span, there's different shoes that do really, really well in those different areas. So sort of matching the technology of the shoe and also the design of the shoe and the rubber to the specific terrain that I'm going to be racing on or training on is something that's really powerful being a Vibram athlete.
You've been doing this for 4 years now. How many miles would you say you've tested Vibram soles in the real world?
That's a good question. I should look at my Strava summary for the last 4 years. Ballpark like 15, 16,000, somewhere in there.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten through all the rigorous testing and then kind of the product creation process for the actual soles, let's deep dive into some product.
Yeah, this is the fun part. This is an Arc'teryx Norvan. Really good example of upper is the black and this part of the white. This foam section is the midsole, and that's the responsiveness and how the shoe sort of feels. And then we have the outsole, which is the rubber on the bottom, which is like your attachment to the earth. This is Mega Grip, which is one of our high performance compounds, and it is a really good balance between grippiness and durability.
For Mega Grip, what are the kind of like best use cases for this sole?
Mega Grip is the perfect balance between grippiness and durability. It also performs really well on wet surfaces, so if a rain shower comes through, you don't start sliding around. You are just as attached as when it was dry. It also has light base. So light base is a different technology that is within the outsole. Another shoe that has light base is the Norda 005. This shoe is amazing. This is a race shoe. This is Mega Grip Elite, so it's a little bit stickier, more of a race compound for maximum stickiness, little less durability, so a training shoe would be just Mega Grip, but for racing, Mega Grip Elite is amazing. Light base. What is light base? It is the textile that is under the rubber. The reason that this is a really cool technology is it means that we can make the layer of rubber on the shoe thinner by adding a very strong textile to it. Then the whole shoe can be lighter, which means it's more of a performance shoe. You waste less energy lifting your feet. No ankle weights here. Maximum performance.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite shoes to run in. The durability you get from the Dyneema and the lightness of the Vibram outsole and bottom, it's a go-to for me.
Jump across a mountain in these. That's what I do, actually. To continue on the technologies in the Vibram sole, this is a Hoka Speedgoat 6. On here we have something called traction lug. So the traction lug are these little triangles on the edge of the lug. Well, this increases the surface area of the sides of the lugs for loose medium. So it's a sort of combination of traction and grip and adds a little bit of extra stickiness when you're on a loose surface.
So many little details that go into every single sole. It's absolutely mind-blowing. You know, seeing that Vibram symbol on the bottom of the shoe, really, again, you kind of get an idea of all the thought and engineering and design that goes into each one of these soles. It's always been like a certificate for me that like this is the best sole that I can get my hands on. So we've gone really in depth with kind of more technical running trail, and one that always is really great for us here at Huckberry, especially as we are getting into fall, is a little bit more dynamic outdoor and lifestyle. So let's transition a little bit over into that area. So here we have a staple at Huckberry, which is the Danner 917. Again, the great Vibram midsole and outsole. Can you tell us a little bit more about this one?
Yeah, for sure. This is a Vibram midsole and an XS Trek compound on the outsole. So the combination of Vibram outsole, midsole, and then this beautiful, I think, leather. Looks like leather upper. Looks like a really pretty boot.
And this sole was actually designed in collaboration with Danner, correct?
Yes, yeah. So this is a good example of Danner came to us and said, hey, we're making a boot. We want an outsole and a midsole. And then this is a custom tread design working together with them to talk about what sort of grip they want, what sort of performance they want, where they expect the boot to be used.
Yeah, I love this Danner boot, particularly because, you know, Danner has such a long, great history of outdoor and mountaineering boot, and I think as long as I've known them, have pretty much exclusively used Vibram for their outsole. It's very light, it's very easy to wear, very flexible, which has little to no break-in period, and I just absolutely love this take of the Danner 917. And then one more to kind of highlight, one of my personal favorites, probably because of my involvement in this boot. This is our Rhodes Chelsea boot, one of our house brands. And this personally has one of my favorite Vibram soles, which is the 2060 Sport. This is definitely more of a lifestyle sole. I personally love just the lightness of it for a boot. Typically these type of boots are very heavy and cumbersome and require a lot of break-in period, but I always call this like my sneaker-like boot sole. Can you tell us a little bit more about the 2060 Sport sole?
Yeah, for sure. This is the More Flex outsole. It is an expanded EVA, and one of the really cool things about boots like this is that the outsole can be replaced. So when you have a really high quality upper, it's really important to be able to do that with the outsole as well, because the outsole is what touches the ground, what wears. And so this can be replaced, I would say, infinitely.
Treating your shoes and boots with care and getting them resoled as they need to really extend the life. The thing a lot of people don't know is a lot of those resolers actually have access to Vibram outsoles. And if you're gonna choose a sole to resole your boots with, I highly recommend putting a Vibram outsole when getting your boots or some of your shoes resoled. And I think that wraps it up for this Gear Lab. Thank you, Robyn, so much for coming out and seeing us here in our studios, and thanks for imparting all this amazing knowledge and wisdom on all of our viewers. If you have any more questions, be sure to drop a comment below, and be sure to check out all of the great Vibram sole assortment on Huckberry. And until next time, we'll see you out there.